looked inside and saw the human skin pelt hanging, completely intact, in one piece. Words of a detective entering a nightmare in a quiet neighborhood on the morning of March the 1st, 2000. Behind this seemingly harmless exterior is a violent and dangerous criminal. The bloody and horrific crime scene detectives had to walk into on the morning of March the 1st will haunt them forever. Stay tuned if you want to know more about a crime that traumatized even the toughest and left everyone speechless. Katherine Knight was born on October the 24th, 1955 in Tenterfield, New South Wales, Australia. She was the younger of twins, born to an abusive father who was an alcoholic with a violent temper. Her mother struggled to protect her children from his violent outbursts and even had to suffer violence and rape up to 10 times per day by this man herself. The family life was overshadowed by reoccurring sexual violence and abuse and can be characterized as being absolutely dysfunctional. A dark and violent childhood. During her school years, Katherine was known for bullying smaller children and raging a lot when things didn't go her way. At Muswell Brook High School, Katherine was a loner who assaulted at least one boy with a weapon and was subsequently injured by a teacher who acted in self-defense. This behavior is in stark contrast to her having been regarded a model student who frequently got awarded for her impeccable behavior. She showed some more concerning behavior from an early age on, as she took pleasure in making others scared of her. At 15 years old, she left high school, and 1 year later she started working at a local slaughterhouse, where she was responsible for the boning process. She was given her own range of butcher knives. To her it was a job she described as a dream job that triggered her lifelong obsession with knives. At home, Katherine always hung up the knives above her bed, so that they would always be at hand when I needed them, as she put it, a habit she kept until her arrest. Given her abusive upbringing and the disturbed relationship Katherine had with her own father, she was never able to form any healthy relationship towards men. She knew how to make her partners happy though, always having dinner ready when they got home, being very sexual with them. This wasn't done out of love though. She was manipulative and wanted to be in control of her partners. Her destiny was probably already set in stone by early adolescence, when she had her wedding night with her first partner, David Kellett. David Kellett was arguably the first person to feel what she is capable of doing if angered. During their wedding night, David was not able to perform sexually the way Katherine wanted him to, so she just started choking him furiously out of frustration. If this wasn't enough, one night a darts competition almost ended David's life. The couple had an argument because David had called and said he would return home when the darts competition was over, because it was still going on at that point. This resulted in Katherine hitting him in the face with an iron. She hit him so hard that he lost consciousness and woke up 2 days later in a hospital. She persuaded him to withdraw the subsequent charges he had filed with the police. They had 2 children together, but as you can imagine, their marriage failed just a couple years after due to the constant abuse. After the divorce, Katherine was seen in public violently tossing the baby carriage back and forth. One day she went to the doctors, where she was diagnosed with postnatal depression and referred to St. Elmo's Hospital in Tamworth. After her release, she placed her 2-month-old daughter on a railway track, stole an axe, and threatened to murder someone in town. Following this incident, she was admitted to a psychiatric institution, but strangely enough, she was released on the same day. And luckily her little daughter was saved by a local person, just minutes before the train was to arrive at the station. A couple days later, after this incident, she injured a woman's face with a knife and forced her to drive to Queensland, where she expected to find David Kellett, who went into hiding because he was scared of her, as you can imagine. Her other relationships were just as toxic. Sometime in May 1987, she cut the throat of her partner's 2-month-old dog to show what would happen if he went out cheating on her with another woman. After killing the dog, she smashed her partner's face with a frying pan, rendering him unconscious. Her troubled and insane inner life was also in a way reflected in the decoration of their shared home in Aberdeen, which was decorated with various animal trophies, like skulls, hides, horns, as well as rusty animal traps, machetes, leather jackets, and old rubber boots. The house was literally full from bottom to top with stuff of that nature, leaving no space uncovered. David couldn't take it anymore. After 10 years with Katherine, the 30-year-old miner took a long service leave and went into hiding, which angered Katherine, so she tried to find him. As if this wasn't enough tragedy straining the relationship, Katherine went to the police and untruthfully told them she was afraid of him, which led to authorities issuing a so-called apprehended violence order. David got to know about this when he returned several months later to see his daughter. Well, I am mentioning all this for you to get an impression of the state of mind of Katherine Knight and the kind of person she is. Extremely violent, easy to anger, and a liar, capable of performing the most cruel acts imaginable. Eventually each partner was to find out her secret, which is an illness called borderline personality disorder. But believe me, it will get even worse. These incidents were just the beginning of the stomach-turning horror of what was to come. 2 more men will have to experience a relationship with this abusive and evil woman, John Chillingworth and John Price. The latter would have wished he had never met this woman. The relationship with John Chillingworth lasted 3 years, until she left him for a man she had been having an affair with for some time, the previously mentioned John Price. John Price was father of 3 children and worked in the local mines, earning a good amount of money when he began an affair with Katherine Knight. He was well liked by the people who knew him and was regarded a terrific bloke. He was aware of Katherine's violent reputation. However, this did not stop him from committing to a relationship with her and letting her move into his house. His own marriage had ended in 1988, so he felt like giving it a try. After all, his children might have a female person to relate to again if they became a couple. Well, you might think that the children didn't like her, and rightfully so, but this wasn't the case. They did like her, and apart from some heated arguments in the house, the relationship seemed to go well. Sadly, these happy times would not last. Soon it was apparent that this relationship followed her usual patterns of violence and argument. A turning point in their relationship occurred in 1998, when they fought over his refusal to marry her. She got so angry about this, she grabbed a camera and videotaped items he had stolen from his workplace in the mines and sent the images to his boss. Although they were just expired medkits that he took from the company's dumping ground, he was fired from the job, a job he had held for 17 years. This was a devastating loss for John, who strongly identified himself as a working man. As a consequence, he kicked her out, but she kept coming back. It wasn't out of feelings of love, but rather about her not being able to lose control of John. And of course the news spread throughout time, and most of his friends would no longer have anything to do with him, when he started the relationship again a few months later. On the 28th of February, John, while on his way to work, stopped at the local Scone Magistrates Court to get a protective order against Katherine Knight to keep her away from himself and his children. Prior to his decision, there had been more assaults on him. In one of them, he was stabbed in the chest by Katherine. The same day, as if he already sensed that he wouldn't be living much longer, he told his working colleagues that if he didn't show up to work the next day, it was because Katherine had killed him. Alarmed at what John said to them, they pleaded him to not return home, to which John responded he feared Katherine would kill his children if he did not. Upon arriving home, John noticed his kids weren't there but have been sent to a friend's house for a sleepover by Katherine. Relieved that his children were taken care of, he went to neighbors and spent the day with them until returning home and going to bed at around 11 p.m. There is evidence that Katherine had already been determined to take revenge at this point. She had made a video on the same day where she was playing with a child and addressing the camera, saying, "I love my grandchildren. I hope I will see you all again." She knew her life wouldn't be the same after she had conducted the murder. Katherine arrived at the home a little later while John was sleeping. She sat down on the couch and watched TV for a little while. Eventually she went to the bathroom to take a shower. She then woke up John and they had sex. After that he fell asleep again. Just like the butcher she was, she stabbed him for at least 37 times while he was lying in bed, injuring vital organs. Blood pattern analysis revealed that John didn't die in bed. He was able to get up and run down the stairs, with Katherine following him, while furiously stabbing him, until it was finally over. And he died. Katherine wasn't satisfied with Price's death though. She was not done yet. During the night, she skinned him with such a precision that upon autopsy, pathologists were able to put back the skin onto his body, the skin she had hung on a meat hook. Well, after all, she had learned her craft at her job in the slaughterhouse. She cut his head off, she cut off parts of his body, boiled them with vegetables, and plated them up to serve to his children. She even fed parts of him to the dog. During her insane bloodlust, she was taking a break, driving to a bank to withdraw $1,000 from John's bank account, and came back home. As the sun rose the following morning, neighbors were concerned about the fact that John's car still stood in the driveway, and when he also did not show up to work, his employer sent a worker to see what was going on. Both a neighbor and the worker knocked on John's bedroom window, but they soon alerted the police after noticing blood on the front door. When police arrived at the crime scene, they found a pot still warm on the stove and 2 meals waiting on the table. They also found Katherine lying on the bed in a comatose-like state. She unsuccessfully tried to overdose on prescription medication. Later it was revealed that these prepared meals were made of John's body parts. It didn't take long for the gruesome news to spread, and with it, the shock about what happened. One of the detectives, the lead investigator, suffered a nervous breakdown. He just couldn't handle what he had seen. Imagine lifting a lid of a pot, and suddenly a face is staring back at you. A face that is boiling in water, along with vegetables. Who can blame this man suffering after having seen such an insane impression? There is nothing that can prepare someone for such a horrible sight. That man is still seeing treatment up to this day. Well, for the following 6 days, Katherine was admitted to hospital, claiming she had no knowledge of the crime she committed. When detectives interviewed her, she kept on claiming to have no memory of murdering John Price. Eventually, it had to be determined whether she was of sound mind or not. Psychiatrists who conducted tests with Katherine concluded that she didn't suffer from mental illness in the sense that she lost touch with reality. They diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder, though. In October 2001, this case went on trial, and Katherine Knight had to finally take responsibility for what she had done. Katherine Knight didn't accept responsibility for her crime, though, and pleaded not guilty with murdering John Price. Her attorneys tried to convince the court that she did all of this in a dissociative state of mind, which ultimately led to memory loss, but they couldn't convince the court, and eventually Katherine Knight was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This made her the first woman in Australian history whose sentence was structured in this way. The court argument for this decision was that she had planned killing him and knew right from wrong. She hadn't lost touch with reality, and there were also no voices telling her she had to butcher John Price. In the year of 2006, Katherine Knight appealed against the sentence, arguing that the punishment imposed was too severe for the crime. The appeal was rejected by the Court of Appeal in September, though. The now 76-year-old woman is serving the sentence at Silverwater Women's Correctional Center. She will die there. Well, we reached the end of today's video, and quite frankly, doing research for this case gave me a strange feeling, because there was so much wrong with Katherine, so many red flags, and eventually it led to a catastrophe. Could this have been prevented if Katherine went into psychiatric treatment earlier in her life? Or was she just downright evil from the start? Let me know what you think. I'm curious about your opinions on this case. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It would help my channel a lot. This would lead to my video getting more attention, as the YouTube algorithm would suggest it to other viewers. Thank you for watching, and I hope we will see us again in my next video.